1927, during the 5th Solvay conference, the scientific world officially declared God to be dead by kicking him out of their world and by introducing the concept of probability waves. And the concept of probability waves, in fact, expresses that the fine structure of our reality, the most fundamental existence of our being in this world, has been based on a concept of probability. And in fact, that causality completely disappears in the fine structure of our reality. And that has had huge consequences in the way of thinking of science. Because if the fine structure of our reality, of this physical world, is something that happens by coincidence, then this whole reality becomes totally meaningless. Because there is a fundamental difference between a universe that is totally arbitrary and everything happens just like the outcome of dice. It's all based on probability. That's a completely different universe than a universe in which we really do matter. We really have impact on the future. We really can change the future. Where everything, what we do, what we think, how we act, has consequences. The causality is in fact the fundamental structure of our fine structure in our reality. And Einstein was the only man who saw this. Einstein was the only scientist who stood up against the whole scientific world and declared that God doesn't play dice. And it doesn't matter who you call God. It doesn't matter if you call God Yahweh, Hashem, Allah, God, or you call him just nature, or you call him love, or you call him friendship. It doesn't matter, but you have to believe in something. If you really ground your world on probability, that it doesn't matter what you do, but in fact now the foundation of our modern science is, everything is based on probability, on quantum physics, then life becomes meaningless. And that's a kind of hell of Dante's. And you have to understand that everything what has happened in quantum physics has really everything to do with Maxwell. When Maxwell would have found the right equation, when Maxwell would have found Newton's equation, Newton's second law of motion, and had applied it to an electromagnetic field, everything in the whole scientific world would have gone differently. It is all based on the idea that electromagnetic waves, or light, how you want to call it, has no mass. And if light has no mass, then Einstein had to develop his theory of general relativity. And in quantum physics, there are suddenly waves and nobody understands where they come from. But if science had, in the time of Schrödinger, when he developed the Schrödinger equation, and even much better, the relativistic Dirac equation, which is really the mother of the equations in quantum physics, then they would have understood that what they have observed are not probability waves. And they would have understood that the fine structure of our reality, the structure that this world has been made of, is pure causality, and that everything what we do in this world has consequences, and that for that reason every human being in this world is so fundamentally important, because we create this world. And if we are not happy with this world, then we have to understand that we have created it. We can of course say, well, God created the universe. Yes, okay, there is a creator of the universe, absolutely. But we creating our future. And that happens. And the whole climate change is just a consequence of everything what we have decided to do. And our thinking and our actions and how we behave determines our future. And it is really a sad situation that it has an impact for everybody. So what the generations before us have done and has led to this complete climate change, they will not suffer from it because they will already be dead when it really begins. But the people who are young now, the youth, the new coming generations, they will suffer from it. And that is indeed a fundamental part in this reality, that what we do will have an impact, maybe not to us, but it will have an impact to our children, to our grandchildren, and the grandchildren of our grandchildren. But we create the future. And it is very important to realize that causality is the fine structure of our real world. And because Maxwell walked with his equations into the swamps of mathematics, then during the Solvay conference in 1927, the fifth Solvay conference, the whole scientific world, together with Bohr, walked into the swamps and they drowned. The only man who didn't drown was Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein understood the impact of declaring God to be something like a dice. He understood the impact, he understood the importance. He's the only one. And the weakness of Albert Einstein was that he believed in Maxwell. And because he believed that Maxwell was right, Einstein had to develop a very complicated and very difficult mathematical theory, which we call now general relativity. But if Maxwell had the right equations, then Einstein would have had the right equations, and his model for the interaction between gravity and light would have been much more simple. And that is in fact a tragedy if one scientist makes a little mistake. He drags all the scientists coming after him with him. And that's why I call mathematics the swamps. It's quicksand. And if you step on it, the beginning looks stable, but if you start to go slowly into quicksand and disappear, then you drag everybody who is following you with you. Mathematics is for this reason quicksand. You have to compare everything what you do in science with the rock of physics, and I call that Newtonian physics. And I'm not speaking about Newton. I'm not speaking about Newton at all. I'm speaking about that Newton had a master, a teacher, who taught him, and that was nature. And it is maybe the creator of the universe who, through the universe, taught Newton how to set up science. And Newton had no conflict with causality. And as soon as science has embraced causality, everything changed. But now we're living in a world of modern physics, and yes, it's true, science has taken over the role of religion, but they don't really guide the world because they have nothing to believe in.